Hey guys, it's Shikaka3. This is going to be a behind the scenes video for my Bowser combo video, King of Pain, or whatever. The Last King. Wow, I'm messing up already. I've tried to do this behind the scenes video for, I don't know, like a week now. And I've tried to make it this big elaborate thing, and I have this script that I've been working on for like a month, and it's just not working out. So this is going to be kind of a clumsy walkthrough of some of the effects that you guys are probably more interested in, rather than this big history lesson and giving context behind a lot of the decision making and stuff, which would have been a cool video to put out, but I think most people wouldn't have really been interested in something like that. And it would have been too much work for me, whereas I can be doing other things. Other more productive, fun things, like making videos. But anyway, so let's talk about some editing stuff. So first of all, I'm going to go over a few of my hotkeys that help me navigate. If you press the grave key, which is the key next to the number 1, it's kind of below escape, it will maximize whatever panel your mouse is over the top of. Pressing plus and minus will zoom in and out on the timeline. You can also hold the Alt key and do a little bit more of a controlled zoom. And then you can delete, Control Z, but you can do Control Shift Z to redo. So you can go back and forth without moving your hand. So that's pretty nice. Anyway, let's get started with some stuff. So this video, I'm just going to do a few fun facts. So the oldest clips in this video that went into the combo video were these two against Flit, dated all the way back to 2016. It was like right after I posted King of Pain 3 and also when Project M ceased development. And then the latest clips I got were mid 2019. So that was right around when Project Plus released. So this project actually spanned between the end of Project M and the beginning of Project Plus, which is kind of cool. Well, it's kind of sad that it took me that long, to be honest. But anyway, that's like 3 or 4 years of planning out this project. Speaking of planning, these two musical pieces, these two video game remixes, I had planned on using these for like years before I even did anything in editing. So that whole time I was planning out certain effects that to sync with the music. I had been thinking about this project almost every day for years. So that's why it seems so visually interesting, is because like it's literally years worth of work mentally. That's all the fun facts I can think of. So let's just get into editing right now. So the wavy effect that you see throughout most of the video, that's an effect called Turbulent Displacement. What that does is it takes the video and it adds kind of undulations to it, right? And you can animate that. You can make the effect more or less apparent. And I figured this was a pretty fitting effect for the video, since the songs are kind of like weird and dark, and especially the first one kind of is very wavy and meandering. This Lucario clip right here, this is like the 3rd or 4th attempt at this visual, because in the original clip, the footstool happens really low, like way down there. And I wanted, well, for one, because of what happens in the song, the whole tone of the song shifts there. That's when I wanted things to mentally kind of switch for the viewer. So these are all kind of standard combos, right? Like it's just hitting your opponent. This is where things start getting a little more interesting. So I'm introducing the footstool here. Because it's in the storyline of Shikaka 3 videos, this footstool after the up B loop it doesn't exist yet. This is my unveiling of that combo. So I wanted it to be a big moment. Bang. So what this is actually like, it's zooming in and then switching over to the cinematic right here, which isn't perfect. It's really difficult to go from gameplay to cinematic and not make that feel awkward or out of place. And so that's why it took so many attempts to get this to work. It's just really particular keyframing and stuff. Time remapping to get the timing right. Right here, I use this effect a lot. So this is using an ultra key to get rid of the background, obviously. It's using Gaussian blur, Luma key, turbulent, and turbulent displacement. I guess that's it. And then opacity. So what's happening here is I'm taking the darks away, and you'll see I use this later. This is actually a really cool effect. You take a Luma key. Okay, you take a Luma key, and let me just get rid of this layer so you can see what's happening. So what Luma key does is it checks whether it checks the luminance of pixels, and it figures out if something is above or below it. And you can change the cutoff. So you could say if it's below this point, then get rid of it. So what I'm doing in those clips is I'm just animating a keyframe from here to here, and I'm just raising the cutoff point. So over time, you're seeing less and less of the lighter areas. And then I'm using Turbulent Displace to kind of pull Bowser apart. And then Gaussian blur to kind of make it all ethereal, and it's a cool transition in the next clip. So this clip right here is using Echo. Oh, it's in here, that's right. Using an Echo effect, and I have find edges on this in order to help see what's happening a little better. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show off the effects very well because recording while doing the video editing part, it's a little tough on the computer. So anyway, there's this section of the song I wanted to have a big impact. This is actually one of the oldest effects that I planned out in my head. There's this part of the song that's like wow wow. And I had this idea to have like Bowser kind of swoop away with the F smash, like charging it, and then come in and like before I even knew what clip I wanted to have here, I knew I wanted it to be like an F smash. So when I did that, I noticed that it cut off like a lot of the gameplay. I have motion keyframes pulling Bowser to the side, but even still, it's not enough to keep the eyes on the gameplay, which you'll see that was a big goal of mine, was to have effects not interfere with gameplay whenever possible. Because that's the point of the video, is to show off gameplay. And anything I can do to keep people who don't like visuals, to keep the video entertaining for them too, I'm going to try to do that. So what I did was I used a 3D swivel effect on the background here. What that does is basic 3D. It's actually kind of cool. You can like tilt the video around like that. Or I guess you can swivel the video and then tilt it like that. So I had the video in the background kind of swing open. And then it also is moving to the side at the same time. Yeah, there's motion keyframes here. And then you can barely see it, but I have some static in the background, kind of like it's breaking the fourth wall in a sense, kind of tearing open the video there. Yeah, let's move on. This clip, so this is actually a cinematic of Bowser doing a particular punch here. Fist nest, is that it? Here we go. So that punch is actually kind of interesting because it's a modified animation. Oh, here we go. So this is actually Bowser's F-tilt, and in BrawlBox, or BrawlCrate actually, I modified the animation. I just drug his arm bone over, so as the animation is happening, it just happens farther out, because I knew I wanted to emphasize this punch here, and I wanted to do it by having like a fist come in, poorly masked off. Anyway, this fist come in. But the thing is if you look at what Bowser is doing, actually, his big old face is in the way, so it didn't look good in a cinematic. I tried, so I had to edit the animation myself, and I'll have a section all on its own, probably towards the end of the video, where I specifically talk about Dolphin and editing animations and stuff. I have this effect here. This is a custom Quake animation. It just kind of moves the screen around. That's from cinecom.net. I'll link it in the description. It's pretty cool. You can just add shake to videos. They also cranked up the shutter angle to kind of add motion blur. And yeah, it's just a Bowser masked off on top. It's kind of animated over time slightly. You can see it's not masked off very well, to be honest. It didn't need to be, because this happens in like less than a second. And it's gone. And so you really don't need to be super precise with this stuff. Because it's kind of, I mean, I made it and I can't tell. So afterwards, I wanted to tease the cinematic section, because that's kind of like the big part of the video, is all of these visuals that happen later. So all throughout this beginning section of the video, I'm teasing what's happening in the next section. Like I guess foreshadowing is a better word. So I'm introducing some colors onto the fists. I'm desaturating the fist, and I'm also putting on a threshold on the top layer, which actually it didn't end up using a whole lot. It's the same thing I used on Colors of a Hero to get Link's visuals. I used this threshold to kind of pull out the highlights. The reason I didn't just use a flat shot of Bowser's fist coming in is because it adds so much depth when it moves. So whenever possible, I tried to use video instead of just static shots. This is a custom graphic that I made a while back. It overlays on top of the standard game graphic, and I just made it because sometimes this graphic looks all pixelated and glitchy, and so I made a custom one to kind of add a bit more flair to it. So the next thing is this clip, again teasing the visuals in the next section. One kind of thing that I did here that probably a little Easter egg, I guess, maybe not Easter egg, little visual detail that probably didn't get picked up was when the whole video here is desaturated, except for Bowser, actually. Yeah, except for Bowser, because I kind of wanted it to feel like, because it's a really weird clip, I kind of wanted it to feel like Bowser still had control here, and he was the only one that had control. So I left the saturation on him, and once he hits Snake with the up tilt, you can see that it drags out that saturation to the path that Snake flies in. I just thought it was kind of like Bowser was transferring his power to Snake. Probably 0 people noticed that. This is one of the 2 times that I used After Effects in the whole project, and it was just to create this portal. This was actually really early on in the lifespan of the project I worked on this. It was just a series of compromises, because I don't know how to use After Effects, and it didn't seem like it was doing anything better than what I was doing in Premiere. But essentially, this was the first time I had used that light pulse effect on Bowser himself, and you could see it's not as polished as what you see later. The reason why I did this kind of weird glitchy step down as the portal goes away was I couldn't figure out how to make Bowser scale up as the portal was scaling down, because they were tied to each other. I have the portal masking off Bowser, so I used the pick whip to tie the two together, and they just got linked, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just make Bowser scale up by 25% each step and the portal scale down. So I mean, that's why it steps like that. The portal effect is actually just, it's 2 of these images, well, 2 different images, and they're just rotating in opposite directions at different speeds. And because of that, it makes it look like the portal is animated, even though it's really not. It's just 2 still images. But there's so much going on between the edge movement and the static stuff that it really looks like its own animated thing. So this was another idea that I had really early on, was I wanted to tease one of the cinematic sections. And I had this 2 stock clip, and I was like, well, might as well do something right here. So I had this portal that's tracked to this totem pole in the background in After Effects. That's something After Effects does that Premiere really doesn't do, and that's tracking objects in video. All right, so right here we're actually getting into this section of quicker clips. This effect here is actually really simple. I think it's using the same techniques that I used earlier on that Lucario clip right here. It's just using these effects, but just on gameplay instead of cinematic. So it makes a really cool transition, actually. I used a color key on this one as well, or maybe exclusively for this particular one. But it's just kind of bringing up the tolerance over time. It creates this interesting kind of disintegrating feeling to it. And then a Gaussian blur, of course, to make it a bit blurry and bring your focus into the next clip. This one has Gaussian blur going the opposite direction, so you're shifting your focus in from the other one. I think it's the same thing for all of these, to be honest. Oh yeah, there's also a threshold to kind of make the highlights lighter. So this is one of the 2 clips that I'd been sitting on for a very, very long time. Anyway, here's how it works. I have this adjustment layer on top. It's just this mask, and I think it's inverted, yeah, to keep the effects pushed away from the gameplay because this part is really strong. It's the Gaussian blur. Oh, I have the opacity keyframes coming in and out as the B is happening. Oh, this is a detail layer on top. So this is just to keep the characters visible through the other effects. Instead of masking, keeping like a circle on each character, I decided to use color keys, just kind of individually pick all the different colors and cut them out individually. It kind of adds to the glitchy nature of it. Oh, this is a nest. Okay. Oh, whoa. Okay, so this is probably some threshold going on, and yeah, threshold. The opacity keyframes are just to bring it in and out as time goes on. Threshold, Gaussian blur, which isn't doing anything. Wow. Turbulent displace to kind of make it all warbly and interesting. And then contrast to bring it down a bit so it's not as distracting. And then down here we have another turbulent displace. Directional blur. That one's to kind of emphasize the horizontal nature of this. It's not even a combo, it's this clip. So anyway, all together you get this kind of tearing, disorienting visual effect. It's pretty cool. This is something where you just want to play around with it and keep adding things until it becomes what you want. I mean, that's how most of the effects are, really. Just keep doing stuff until it gives you the feeling that you want the viewer to feel, right? The next thing is this clip. So this is using a Bowser Cinematic. The cool thing about this is that this was actually me using task tools in order to create identical video files with different textures. And I'll get into that in the Dolphin section, but essentially it allows me to manipulate the game itself to create identical video layers that have different effects in the video. So like I can make it have different lighting, I can make it have a different texture. So like this one is a normal shot, but like this one is just the eyes. That's how I make the eyes glow in the video layer here. It's because I can cut out the background and cut out the black and just have some lumetri color, and oh, this is the eyes layer, and then this is the detail layer of just the eyes, and then this is on top of that, this is a Gaussian blur to make the eyes glow. So yeah, I have lots of stuff going on here. Oh, I made him march in tempo thanks to my metronome tracks. Pretty cool. So the visuals going on here is actually like, again, it's a combination of things in order to create a certain feeling. So in this layer, I have a threshold. I mean, it's just a combination of blending options in order to, this one's threshold to kind of bring the highlights in and have it be more of like a harsh lighting. And this one I have like a tint to kind of desaturate it, or I don't know, to do something. It's just keyframes over time to kind of create this interesting visual. Changing the threshold over time does the same thing as changing the luma key stuff. So you get more and more of the color being changed to white. So like if I demonstrate on another video, you can see, obviously this is a really strong effect just on its own, but you can change how much it's affecting by bringing the slider around. So for example, if you wanted a clip to have like deeper blacks and to have like a harsher lighting, what you would do is you could have a layer on top where it's the highlights, or let's do the blacks, right? So it's picking up the shadows and stuff, so that's a good amount. And then you change the blending mode to darken. And so you can see you have the blacks are a lot stronger. And you can do the same thing with the whites too. You have it go the other way and then change it to lighten. And so now you have white light areas and black dark areas. And you can mess with the amounts. I don't know, that looks cool, right? All right, so let's keep going here. This actually was, I think it was the last effect that I added in the whole video. So I needed something to kind of bridge the gap between this bigger editing section and the next whole group of the video. And so it was one last tease for other effects, and I kind of was using all this like find edges and stuff. I'll get to it later. So into the next section. This is a cinematic. Well, that's obvious, but it's here because I kind of wanted people to wake up. I know that like you can only hold people's attention for so long. So I wanted people to realize that it wasn't the end of the video. There's more. But I also kind of wanted to jumpstart into this big guitar riff at the start, or whatever this is. So I kind of wanted to emphasize that with something surprising, kind of echoing my my last combo video. You know, something that's funny about this project is that it looks, the raw video file looks so much better. Like when you get to this part with all the static and the movement and stuff, like I kind of knew it was going to happen, but like even now you can tell it gets all pixelated and stuff just because there's so much detail. But this to me looks way better than it does on YouTube, but I don't know, maybe the glitchiness adds to it. Actually, I'm going to load up the cinematic section and we can talk about the thing everybody wants to hear about probably is all of this stuff. So let me take a minute and open that up. All right, so we're in the cinematic section, which actually was its own project file, just because I knew this was going to be bigger, and having to open up the main editor, like the main project, and have all of this stuff going on, which you'll see how crazy it gets. I knew that was going to be a bit of a pain to have to load all of those videos in every time, like all this stuff. So anyway, let's get into it and start looking at what happened. So I have this cinematic, oh, by the way, this is why you need to maximize panels. It's because, wait till I open up this nest. So anyway, we have Bowser walking up here. So this is just coming off that huge drop. So I was initially trying to confuse the viewer, like what's happening? I don't understand. And then slowly work into this, which is kind of the main part of the video, is this right here. And so I kind of wanted to give little teases that things were happening, there's more Bowsers and whatever. There's even this sound in the background. That in the background, you can see there's something spinning around. Maybe it's very dim on purpose. It's this Cine shadow. It's this animation I found in BrawlCrate of Bowser doing a damage animation. And it's just on loop. So it's Bowser kind of whipping around. And I have the settings for this turned down super far. Like the opacity is really low. The color settings are pretty low. Just so there's something moving in the background, but you don't quite understand what it is. I wanted to kind of give that feeling of like, what is that? So I'm having the Bowsers kind of run in. All this stuff is leading into the big reveal. So let me go slow here. This right here. So this is the big the big part. So zooming into it, or I mean leading into the big reveal, different ways I sold kind of that effect where I had Bowser shrink while the ring expanded to kind of make it feel like you were falling into the tunnel. And then as it comes back from the white, you have Bowser kind of being pulled back in. And then it's the full reveal here. So this is it right here. It's this nest. Are you ready? So this is it. The entirety of the effect is this right here. It's this series of rings that I made in After Effects. This is the second time I used After Effects. It was just to make these rings. So what this is actually, it's just one Bowser offset by 1/8 note or something. Anyway, this is all on tempo. The way that the Bowsers are moving is on tempo. Like you can see the sparks are all offset by the same amount, and the gyrations are all the same amount because the video duplicates themselves are all offset by the same amount. So what's happening here essentially is I have a ring for each layer, and that ring was created by duplicate Bowsers offset by a particular rotation amount. Actually, I could just show it with another clip. So like, let's take this shot of Bowser walking, bring it in as a video, use an Ultra key, get rid of the background. Okay, cool. So how it works is you change the anchor point so that it's not at Bowser's center. It's at a different point on top of him. And now when you do rotation, it will rotate to the anchor point. So if I do a duplicate part and I change that to like, I don't know, 30 degrees, let's do 90. And then I do it again. I change that to 180. And I do it again. I go 270. And you can see now I have a ring. And then I grab my tempo tapper in order to keep track of, or I guess my metronome, in order to keep track of this, and then I offset them by the same amount. And there we go. That's how you make a character ring. So there's a bit more going on than that, but that's essentially how I do it, is I calculate how many degrees they need to be offset by, right? So there we go, I have my ring. And now if I duplicate the ring and offset that by one tempo tick, like this, and then I change the size. So do that times like 9, and then you get this. So this was very thought out in order to get this particular thing. I have all of these different, so anyway, I have all these different shots of the rings. They're offset by the same amounts each time. And what else is there to say? Look at it go. Oh, just in case you wanted to see it. This is what the shot looks like with just the ring. Amazing, isn't it? So anyway, how you kind of sell the illusion that it's like a tunnel, it's not just a bunch of rings, is you have, depending on how far back the ring is, you change the blurriness of it and the color. So like this ring is all the way in the back. It has full blur. Anyway, you just do varying amounts. Like you step down. So like there's a little blur on this because it's in front of the focal point of the shot. Then these two don't have any blur. And then this one has a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and a little more, and a little more, until you get to the bottom. And so it kind of gives the illusion of distance, and then you also darken each shot or each ring. It's literally just adding a little bit. So like this exposure is -1. This exposure is -2. The fists here, these are that fist punch shot from earlier made into its own ring. And then I hide that behind these shells, so you get this kind of trippy visual. You can see that those are all offset as well. I only went to there because below that you can't see, because in the full shot Bowser is covering it, the walking Bowser. It really isn't that tricky of a thing. It's just hard to make it look good. Actually, it's not consistent velocities. I have another keyframe on these. For the rotation, they speed up and slow down. If you look, it's also in time with the music. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I might have gone a little overkill for this. Kind of nuts. But anyway, that's how I did this. It's just the same thing as I showed you earlier. Alright, I'm back. I had to reload my save, or whatever. Alright, so let's get into one of the things everybody wants to know about, and that's this light pulse. Finally going to talk about it. So here's the nest for that light pulse. Pretty clean looking. I'm going to describe how I did it and stuff. Very important image for this demonstration. So we have this very important image that's going to help us to learn how to make the light pulse stuff. So one idea that I had like long before I started editing was I wanted to sync to this right here. I knew I wanted to sync to that, but I didn't know how to do it. And one idea I came up with was just having Bowser kind of blink, but I didn't want it to just be like this, because that looks a little funny. So another idea was to have like bands of light kind of flow up Bowser over time, and you can do that like if I take black video, bring it on top. And I use something called track matte on that, and I track this layer, this transparent image, video 4. Doesn't look like anything happened because it's black and the background's black. Okay, so you can see that it took this black video layer and it made it attached to this, the edges of this image. So what I can do is I can actually take like a mask like this and only show certain sections of the effect. So let me do this. Okay, so this is just kind of a crude way to do it. So there we go. I have a band of white, and I'm going to make it change places over time like this. Like that. So now, if you look, that band is sweeping up Bowser's area. It just looks like it's on Bowser. So the thing is that this kind of looks a bit cheap. Like, it makes Bowser look very flat. He has no depth to him. It's only inside his edges. So how do you make it follow his contours instead of just his outline? And to do that, you do this. So what I used was actually something that is very good at discerning differences in textures and stuff. I used change to color because editing software is really good at picking apart pixel colors. So what you can do is you can pick one color, like let's say the darkest part of Bowser's skin, and change it to white, like that. And then what you do is you animate that over time. So you can hit the FX button to just turn off seeing the effect, by the way. So what I do is I pick that darker skin color, and then over here, I save my project, and then I pick my lighter skin color, like here. And so now if I turn it back on, nothing happens because the tolerance is way too high. So you turn all your knobs down like this, and bang, you get a small selection. That's the reason I did this, is because I used the knobs, the sliders on these effects to bring down tolerances and only select a small portion. And now over time, you can see that it sweeps up that color spectrum, right? Well, actually, if you look at it, you can see that it's traveling up Bowser's skin color, but not his other colors, like the hair and the horns and the skin. So what you can do to actually guarantee that this effect hits all of the colors is you go and you change the saturation down like this. And so now, if you go from black to white, you can see that it guarantees that you hit every color, because the straight line between black and white will hit the whole spectrum. So now you get this really smooth effect, which is honestly super cool. Wow. Oh, the softness is really high, that's why. Bring the tolerances really low, like that. There we go. Now you have something really, really sharp. But you can see that it's a cool light effect, but it's not really super practical because it's changing the color of the character as well. What you do is you just change the blend mode to lighten, and then you get this monstrosity. What the heck? Oh, right, okay. So you don't do it to lighten quite yet. In order to make the edges of the thing sharper, and this is a really important step, threshold, and crank that baby up. So right now, everything that's not white is turned black, essentially. Like if I take this off, you can see what threshold is actually doing. So it's taking all of the lighter areas and making them white, and all the darker areas and making it black. And the slider is just changing the balance. So we want just the areas that are pure white to be changed to white, and then the areas that aren't pure white to be changed to black, more importantly. So now you get this effect where it's kind of sweeping up the contours and it's just the light. And then to get the detail underneath, you change the blending mode to lighten. And there you go. You get this super cool light effect. But you might notice that this is honestly a bit busy. There's no direction to it. It's just happening all over the place. Like you can see that right here, the white is moving down. It's moving from this dark area to this white, or that lighter area. But here it's moving up. It's moving from the shadow to the light. So that's because obviously it's following Bowser's textures, not his model. So how do you make it follow the model? Well, the solution I came up with was to get a shot of just the model, like this. So you can see in this shot, what I've done is I've created a custom texture for Bowser that's just pure gray, because the game is really good at determining how his model is shaped, but I'm not on a flat video. So I just use the lighting engine to have a strong light from the top, so that way it just shines what his model is doing. Oh, and I use my task trick. Okay, that's close enough. You can actually get identical video layers. I'm not sure why this isn't exactly perfect. So this is just kind of just demonstrating the idea of it. You get your change to color on your contour layer. So you have a contour layer and a detail shot. You use change to color on the top. You go from black, create a keyframe to white, set it so it changes the lightness, crank the tolerances down, and then you change it, you give it a threshold to clean up the lines a lot. I don't know why that's so dirty at the start, but So I'm actually in the middle of editing this behind the scenes video, and I'm realizing that I'm not super happy with my explanation of this effect because I didn't get it to be as clean as what ended up in the combo video. So I went back and actually figured out what I did differently in the combo video to make the effect look so cool. So right here I have a cinematic, and I'm just going to be using that as my demonstration here. So the effect that I've been telling you to use so far is this change to color, where you're picking a color and you're saying, hey, change that color to another color. So like you can make it red, right? Well, the effect that I used in the combo video is this one called change color. And the difference is that the color you're selecting, you're just modifying it using these different transformation effects. So picking black and then transforming it to white is effectively doing the same thing. But for some reason, it draws the lines way cleaner, especially with the tolerance down, the lines are still way cleaner. And so the concept that I'm laying out where you're changing a color to another color, and then you're changing the original color over time, the color that's being picked, that still holds. That's the same exact explanation for this effect instead of change to color. And then something else I didn't explain quite as well as I wanted to was what exactly the threshold was doing. So if I get my threshold, all right, so if I get my threshold here, you can see that if I have the threshold off, the Bowser still has gray parts. So when I pick the blend mode as lighten, you can see that it's still forcing the grays to go through a bit, right? So if I turn the threshold back on and then I crank the threshold up, you can see that it's getting rid of it's turning more and more of the grays to black as I go up the threshold. So now, as it's going through that color spectrum, only the whites are going through and the grays don't show up at all. And then to repeat the frames, or to create the pulsing effect, you copy the keyframes, jump forward a frame, and then keep pasting like this. So now you have this light pulse repeating effect. Well, anyway, hopefully that cleared some stuff up. I'm going to get back to my past self now. See you later. So I'll just show it off right here. So here's my contour layer. This one's the one doing the lines. Oh, this is the layer that's being tracked. This is the static that's tracking. And then this is the detail layer underneath. You can see, have all these things kind of blending together in order to create this effect. Have the light pulse kind of fade in. Traces up the contours, and the next one starts. Oh, one little fun fact. This shot here, this is actually his final smash, right at the start when he uses the thing. I thought this was a cool animation. So this effect is a lot cooler than just my uses for it. One thing you can do with this effect is you can key it out, or you can change the layers, right? So like if I set it to normal, I do like a color key on the white area. Huh. Well, anyway, it might be a weird jump cut, but the point I'm trying to get at is I barely scratched the surface with this effect. Like this is a color key on that white area, and then I brought the edge thin down. I don't know why, but it made these cool lines. But you can just go crazy with this, right? Anyway, I just want to see other people mess with it, because I'm not going to be doing that anymore. Not going to be making any videos like this anymore. Lots of really cool ideas just with this this one light pulse kind of contour tracing effect. Fortunately, it's very specific to Project M, at least the contour part. I mean, you can still trace colors and textures and stuff with this. Like I bet I could even do it to this if I wanted to. Yeah, like even on this, I can use that same color tracing effect, and I throw the threshold on it, and you get this. I mean, just because it's a perfect circle, you're getting a perfect circle out of it. But yeah, I mean, you can turn the white part into like a mask, or you can, I don't know, just anything you can think of. It's kind of, the sky's the limit here. Anyway, so yeah, that's how I did the light pulse. Just a combination of game knowledge, trying stuff out, and polishing the effect that I had. So nothing too complicated. It's just a well-executed application of cool visuals, I think. So anyway, let's move on. The next thing I'm going to talk about is this shell nest here. The horns that you see are actually just this the screenshot I took. It's just Bowser's horn, and I just have a whole ring of them, just like I showed before with that tunnel. It's just a bunch of rings kind of moving at the same time. Something that people probably didn't notice was these shells are actually video, because as something goes from one side of your vision to the other side, you actually see different, you get a different perspective of it. So you can see that I have this shot of rotating Bowser, and I use that on these, on that area. The rings are bumping to the beat of the music when that, I think it's a snare drum or a bass drum hits. And then the drop back into this cinematic shot going into Bowser's mouth. This shot was done the same exact way as the ring shot. You just take one shot of Bowser. I don't think I have it in here. Well, this was the old version. It used to be a lot flatter. What part of what gives this new area its trippy nature is that the top ones are moving at different rates than the bottom ones. I tried to force the perspective in this older version. Anyway, there's a lot of planning that went into this. I think you kind of get the point. Shooting in a particular way, realizing that it doesn't look quite right, and then going back and changing it, and then just duplicating it a ton. By the way, same as the tunnel section, they're all offset. They're all offset by the same time interval to be on beat with the music. It really doesn't matter with this shot as much as it does with the tunnel, but... yeah, I think that's really it with the trickier edits for the cinematic section. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I decided to show it off after all. So this is my project file for my pre-renders. It's essentially just a standalone project file where I could do some kind of heavier, some renders of stuff, record it, so that way it wasn't gumming up my other project files, right? Like yeah, look at this. Oh, this is the start of the video. Wow, that's anyway, what this is a loop of Bowser doing a crawl, and you'll notice that it has red underneath. This was one of those ones where I used the task tools to duplicate it. So I have one with normal lighting and then one with the red underneath, like that, and you overlay them on top of each other so you can go in and out between those. Oh, this was just creating the train that became the intro. Anyway, I think it was, oh, this is the full intro thing, I think. I had the light kind of flow in time with the music. It wasn't very noticeable. It's not a big deal. All right, so this is the star of the show for that second big cinematic section, and it's just this right here. Just that. And that's what became this. So you can see basically all I did was I took that one layer and duplicated it like a bunch. How I made it, how my PC didn't explode while I was doing this was I figured out that if you record all of these and pre-render it and turn it into one video file instead of however many this is, all of this is this right here, this sequence. And why it looks like this. When Bowser gets to this point, he's actually in front, because this is supposed to be like, it's kind of coming in and going around like that. So these should be farther away. So these ones are supposed to be in front, and these ones are in front on this side, right? So at some point it switches from being behind to in front. And so this is like the corresponding section here. You get them all in a line, you offset them in accordance with the tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you render that out, and then you do it again, but with more. So then you have all of them. And so something I did with this, I wanted to make it look kind of spherical almost. Like these ones were farther away and these ones were closer. So I have the same thing as in the tunnel where there's blur and contrast on the farther away ones. So it's like, I think it's just a mask. Yeah, it's just a band right here. And then some brightness and contrast. But the big deal is that it's shifting in scale as it goes to other layers. So like this is the center layer, this is this one. And then as it goes down, it goes from this to that. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they grow in scale, and that's why it looks so trippy, is actually because they're moving at different rates. When you increase the scale, they move faster. So you get this. Like if you follow one Bowser, it looks really weird. Anyway, I just thought I'd share what it looks like in the editor all at once. Alright guys, it's the next day for me. I needed a little bit of a break. So where were we? Oh yeah, we were, okay, so we just finished the cinematic section. And so now we're going to talk about the 2 filter layers, or filter chunks. So there's 3 different sections here that have these visual flares to them. If you could think about it this way, the whole first section is more about cinematic elements enhancing the gameplay, and the second section is more about changing the visuals of the overall piece in order to give a certain feeling. So anyway, with actually I should just talk about this section first, because I made this section and used that in order to make this and here. So the section right after, or right coming off of the cinematic part. So yeah, okay, so what's going on here is this effect called Find Edges. You can see right here that it's the gameplay, but it's these drawn lines to the sides. So I'm going to demonstrate how I did that in some test clips. Oh, something that the YouTube audience didn't get to see that the Smashing Grounds people did. Hi. Okay, I can't believe that. Very glad you got to see that if you made it this far. So how the effect works is you have your gameplay footage right here. What you do is you use an effect called Find Edges. And what that does, actually let's make a duplicate like this. Put it on this layer. So what that does is it traces out differences in color and luminance. And when there's a sharp contrast, it will outline it. So like there's white and black here, they're touching. It draws a line around it. And it looks weird in this mode, but if you turn on this invert, it draws it with the same color that's in the video. Essentially, if you have the video layer set to lighten, I think. So now what's happening is it's just taking the lighter areas and it's putting them on top of the other layers. So now you have a layer with just these lines. And so what I did was I had a mask that was masking off the center of the screen, which is normally where the characters are. You invert it, then you add a feather to it. So now the effect is only on the edges. And then I also added a Turbulent Displace. So obviously it's a bit stronger than what I just showed you, but that's essentially the principle that's going on right there, except I actually had one more thing going on. I also had a threshold to turn. So what the threshold does is it turns it just from colors to pure black and white. And with that, you can actually choose how much of the Find Edges gets shown through. So if I turn it back to lighten, you can see that moving this slider around will give more or less of that effect, right? So I can even make it pick up like the background and stuff. So I actually did that with an adjustment layer instead of duplicating the video. That way I can stretch the adjustment layer out over many clips instead of having to copy each one or do a nest or something. And then on top of that, I had this bit of static on the edges. And the static is set to a hard light. Yeah, not a whole lot. Just making the static have a bit of contrast. So yeah, that's how you do this. So anyway, that was a big breakthrough for me, was using find edges and finding a cool way to add lines to shots. And that's actually what I did for this section as well. So these are actually find edges on... Oh, I have a... I didn't do it quite the same, but there is some find edges effects on here. There's like a change color. It's taking the deep colors and making them darker, so it gets more intense as it's going on. Then I have 2 layers that are changing. Oh, let me just show you this. So you can get the white lines like this with an adjustment layer and the find edges and stuff. But what if you want black lines? Well, you just invert it and then do darken and then change the threshold the other way. So that's how you get the dark lines. And so the combination of the two is how I did this. So you can see it in this shot, there's the white lines and then the dark lines. Oh, okay. So I also used an effect for this section. You might notice that there's lines when there wasn't lines in the video feed. Like I'll explain how I did this second section now, which is slightly different, but it's actually also a really cool visual. So what you do is you duplicate it, do the same thing as you did before with find edges. But before you do find edges, use an effect called Posterize. So what that does is it reduces the amount of different colors that can be used to draw the video in the first place. So I'm going to put it above the find edges because what this Posterize effect is doing is it's creating borders between colors for me. So now when I turn on the find edges, it's drawing these lines out all over the place. And so this is already super cool. You can get some really interesting colors by changing the blending options. You get all these super interesting visuals. So what I did was I had the Posterize going, find edges, I invert it to get the light parts, then I use my thresholds to turn it into black and white, and then I can narrow or increase how much I want to pick up. Let's say I want this much. So now when I change it to lighten, you can see I'm getting these cleaner lines because of the Posterize. And you can also do the same thing by duplicating it. Actually, I'm going to put this light layer on top. So if you invert it and darken, so now I'm getting black lines. So, but you might notice that when I overlap the two, well, they're overlapping, one hides the other. So a way to get around that is you change the Posterize level. So now it's drawing different lines. So I just do the same thing that I did for the other clips where I create masks so that it's only the borders of the screen that have the effects on it, and the characters are mostly untouched. So yeah, that's how you do the lines for this section here and this section here. So I have that color changing, creating deeper blacks and whiter whites. And then I also have the lines being drawn. Like you can see the Posterize is drawing a line here and then find edges is tracing it. So that's not all to this section. This section has some really interesting visuals here. You have this like static and whatever. It's creating these weird contrasty kind of areas. I'm actually really pleased with how some of the visuals turned out, especially this clip. This clip looks amazing, like with all these squiggles and stuff. So on top of this line stuff, I have an adjustment layer and a black video layer. So the black video has noise on it, which is just static. So the thing is with this black video is it's set to difference, which it does whatever the opposite of the video layers are below it. Anyway, it just makes the static show up more. It makes the opposite of whatever colors are showing up in the background. So I have this static layer, but the big deal is this adjustment layer on top. This is what kind of pulls it all together. So we have a mask here that's masking off the whole video. So this adjustment layer is only affecting outside the mask. This tint is only desaturating the video. That's its job. This threshold is the big thing here. So this is what the threshold is doing. It's just turning black and white. And I just have a mask on it so that it's like not fully affecting the area and it's only doing the edges. Lumetri color is just kind of doing some more color correcting to make the scene a bit more intense. And because this is an adjustment layer, these effects are just transferring down the stack. So it's affecting everything underneath it. So it's affecting the static. The white static gets made more white and the black gets made more black. The video underneath gets affected by this. And so altogether, it makes for this incredible, like, stylized visual. And it's just tinkering with the settings to make it look good. You can see that I have a keyframe here. Depending on where you bring the threshold, it will affect more or less of the video. So I had keyframes for each clip in this adjustment layer in order to set the visuals for every single clip in here. So you can see as it goes from one clip to the next, it switches to a different threshold amount. So yeah, that's how you do it. Oh, I guess we can talk about right here. So this is just a cinematic. So I showed off that you can do stuff with fine edges and whatever. You can use that on regular gameplay, but you can also do it on cinematic elements. So like, let's say I have this Fsmash here. I can have the same thing on cinematics too. So you can really have stylized visuals on characters, right? So I'm going to invert that thresh and then set to lighten. So now I have this standalone layer with just these white lines, and again, I can do whatever I want. Like I can do Gaussian blur to make it glow a bit. That's actually how I did this. This is one of the very last edits in the whole video. It's the same thing I just did, but without the layer underneath. So it's the black and the white lines that I showed earlier. So Ultra Key, Posterize, Fine Edges, Threshold. And it's just that combination of things tweaked to perfection. And then one of these has Gaussian blur on it to make it glow a bit more. It's the same thing here. This one's pretty simple. So this one's just one flame breath layer and then another with the fine edges and everything on there. Yeah, it's a cool effect. I really like it. I think as far as the stuff in Premiere goes, that's everything. So I'm going to talk about Dolphin for a bit and just go over how I do a lot of the cinematic elements in Dolphin. So I'll see you in a second. All right, guys, let's talk about Dolphin for a bit, because I actually used that quite a bit. I had to do some clever problem solving in order to get some of the visuals that I did. So anyway, we have the Dolphin build that I was using is this custom like Nexus version of Dolphin, but really anything that has it runs using the SD method where there's an sd.raw. Anything that uses that would work fine. So I have Bowser's default file here. Let's open that up. In BrawlCrate, you can see that there's a 3D model here. Right click that, it will show the model. It looks a bit funny because it's showing all of his models. If I go through here, you can see all of the various elements that make up the character, including this shell area. Let's delete those. Okay, so now we're left with just Bowser's kind of regular looking model. In BrawlCrate also you can find the textures that make up the character. So all of these are essentially what's painted over the rig in order to make a model. What you can do is you can export them, and what they do is they just turn into regular images that you can edit in basically any image editor like Photoshop. Okay, so I'm in Photoshop now and I have my textures here. So what I'm going to do is open that. So this is Bowser's entire texture here. This is also how you would do some simple texture edits. Like if you wanted to change colors or whatever, you would select off areas and then change like the color of area, and that would show up in game. But what I did for some of this was like simple things like, so like some of the shots I had desaturated textures. Well, you just do that. And that gives you some of these cinematic shots like this. So in order to get this important thing for the light pulses, you need to select the textures. So what I'm doing is I'm just painting the textures a flat color, pure color, like this. In game, when you record footage of things, the only thing that's getting picked up is actually how the lighting is affecting the contours of the model. There's none of the texture is interfering. And because you picked a flat gray color, you get the highlights showing up and the dark parts showing up. So essentially what you do is you export, the image of the texture back into here, and then you can bring that either into the model. You can either replace that like this with the appropriate thing like this. So this is my gray model, and you just swap it out. And you can either save the model like that, or you can do this, which is a lot easier. You go into the textures, and you load custom textures. So how custom textures, how does that work? So anyway, let's, all right, so what you do is, I've cleared out my folders just so things are a bit more clear. So anyway, you get into the game, and the build really doesn't matter again. You can do this on any build, and this is actually how you make like custom textures for netplay that don't desync. You go into the graphic settings and go to advanced. I'm gonna pick Bowser. When you're about to go into a stage, hit dump textures. And what that does is it pulls up all of the textures that are currently being used in the game right then. So then turn it off. And so it gives a file name for each texture, and that's really important. So when you export them initially, you don't exactly know how Dolphin is going to look up the texture. And so you dump the texture like this. What you do is you grab the file name, paste it onto your custom texture like this, like pretend this is a custom texture. You can see I've already done that for one of these. And then what you do is you copy it, and then you go to user load, and you load the texture in like that. So like, let's say I do that for my gray model texture like this. So now if I go into my graphic settings and I load that custom texture, and you can do that just by unchecking and rechecking it, you can see that I have a version of Bowser that's completely gray, and the only thing that's showing is the contours of the model. You can actually see how the model is shaped this way. But you might be able to notice that it kind of looks a bit flat. You can see how the lighting affects the model here, how the shadows and the highlights are affecting it. But in order for that effect to be really apparent, it needs to go from black to white, or as close to it as it can be. So that way you get a really sharp separation in the lines and more of a gradual switch. So anyway, how do we change lighting? So how it works is, so I'm gonna go grab a custom stage, and I will link it in the description. I have a custom stage and a series of custom stages here where the stage is the online training stage. All right, so it probably was a weird jump cut there. I realized I should explain something a little bit differently. So this right here is the green screen stage that I found online. I think it's by a former PMDT. I forgot. I'll link it in the description. But essentially how this works is this is the online training stage. If I go to preview all models, you can see the tribe platform in the middle. We have the wall there. So how I had a blue background, whereas that one was green. So how that works is how you change the background color. So you go to materials, then the skybox matte here. And you scroll down until you get to the color section right here, color 0 for the skybox matte. You'd see it set to green. Basically, why you would want to change the background color is because if you have a character or a particular shot that you're trying to color key, you want the background color to be as far away from the characters you're trying to key as possible. So here, I need a color that's not yellow. I need a color that's not red. I need a color that's not green or blue or like this kind of peach color. It turns out that the color that is farthest away from those colors here, I need something that's not blue, that's not green, and that's not yellow or red. And so I either could go for this teal color, but that's actually part of Lucario. The yellow was part of Bowser, so the farthest away was this pink. So what you do is you get a color wheel. Like let's say you're trying to color key Sonic. You don't want a blue background. You don't want a green background because that'll get his eyes. And his skin is kind of yellow, so maybe you want like an orange or something, or like a. So you would just go into your stage. So like let's say I'm trying to key out Kirby. So Kirby's like this color, and if I go into my color wheel, that's like right here. His eyes are kind of like blue or green, so I want like a yellow background like that. So I would want something like as my background. That's actually gonna blind my eyes when we open the stage, so I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go with a Nexus purple. So that's how you change the background color. You can also change the lighting of this stage by going to Scene and changing the lighting sets here. So the way that the lighting is set up is in the game, you have what's called ambient light and the light sets. So the ambient light is affecting how dark the shadows are. I guess that's the quickest way to put it. How dark the shadows are going to be. Back in here, we have the ambient light. In our case, for the cinematic, we would want it here. And then these lights here are basically, you can think of it like a flashlight that's pointing in a direction. And it's always pointing towards the center, each character that's on the screen currently. So for this shot here, we want to have a light that's really bright, maybe not pure white, and we want it shining down from above. And so the way it's laid out, it's just like any kind of axis that you would normally think of. So you have your y-axis, x-axis, your z-axis going this way. On Battlefield, that looks like this with your 3 platforms here, right? And then on the training stage, it looks like this with your 3 platforms here. Okay, so this goes the same thing for characters too. So we have, I'm gonna draw a character, but anyway, so I forgot the way that the Z goes. I don't know if it's actually that way or if it's this way. Like, is this plus and this minus, or is it the other way around? I don't remember, but I know that this is X negative, this is X positive, this is Y positive, and this is Y negative. So that means that if we want a light straight above, we want there to be a 0Z, a positive Y, so anything greater than 0. So let's say Y value of 1, and then an X to also be 0. So we want 0, 1, 0. And so that should have a light coming straight down from above. And then for this, we can make it shine in the opposite direction. So -1, 0, 0. This is essentially just turning the light off. And so what you do is you save the stage. So I'm just gonna save it like this. And what you do is you open up Win Image, like here, and then you open up your, hang on, let me navigate to it real quick. Okay, so I'm in my Dolphin build. I navigate to the SD raw. I close this so I can open it. Okay, cool. Now I can edit the game. I go to stage. I inject the custom stage. I inject my custom stage, and if I wanted to, or if I wanted to do the method where I'm affecting the character model instead of just going through custom textures, I would navigate to the model and inject the model itself. So anyway, when you're all done, you just save it. I like to triple click just to be certain, and then I'm gonna open it up. All right, so if all goes well, we should have a textureless Bowser on top of a purple stage with direct lighting above and dark lighting below. And look at that. Cool. So yeah, that's how you edit lighting. That's how you edit textures. And that has come in super handy when making all of these visuals. But there's a problem actually, and that's when you go to record gameplay, right? I can have the character do stuff, but when you overlay the video you record on top of other video, because that's kind of the point, is they need to be identical. So how do you get identical video? I'm sure you can understand where this is going. This is where task tools comes in handy. You can record identical shots. So, and then a flame breath. So now I'm gonna exit, save a replay. So now when you watch the replay back, you can actually move the camera around like this. Like that. If you lock onto a character, you can spin the camera around. Okay, so let me just demonstrate it. So how it works is you go options, or no, you go movie, start recording input. So you need to select Project M, start recording input. And what it will do is it will record all of your inputs from the time that game starts up. So as you're recording your inputs, do them slowly while you're doing the menus, because there's a likelihood that it will desync when you go and change the stage file, right? So like, oh, you need to record an SD card, well, whatever. So anyway, I have this shot. Let's say I wanted to change the lighting. What I would do is I would record my shot. So let's say we have this shot of the camera spinning around Bowser. I stop recording, so this is going to record the task inputs. So let's do video test inputs. So now I can actually play them back like this. Play input recording, video test inputs, and it will go through and actually do the exact same things that I just did. So let's say I wanted to change the stage lighting. So like for this shot right here, how I did the lighting for this shot was by using the task tools. I edited the stage lighting so these shots would be identical, and I could just overlay one on top of the other, right? So let's say I wanted to do that fire shot. I take a character light, I make it like a red color, and then I want it to be, so in this shot, Bowser's like walking towards the camera. The light is, the fire behind him is coming from the top left, or the top right to the bottom left. So I want, and the fire is behind him. So I want the Z to be that way. I want the Y and the X to start positive, to end negative, down here actually. So this is the process that I would go through in order to do this. So I have X1, Y1, so that's 45 degrees. Kind of have to do the mental math here. Let's do Z minus 1. All right, and then for the light color 2, I'm going to do the same thing. Like I pick a red color. Lighting is Z is minus 1. Y is minus 1. X is minus 1. Okay. Now I'm going to save as, I'll just overwrite this. So now I open up my win image, and I'm injecting my stage, save it. So now when I start my task tool, like I play that. Okay, so now if all goes well, we should have lighting coming from the top left and the bottom right, like a low visibility because we didn't change the ambient light. So at any point, actually, you can pause, and I'm back to controlling myself. I kind of got rid of the task video. The task allows you to record the exact same shot multiple times with different lighting and different textures. That's the whole point. So I can overlay these ones like this with these different shots with the exact same timing and angle and everything all at the same time. I think that's all. Oh, right. Custom animations. I forgot about that. So here I have Bowser's model again. Okay, so we're back to Bowser's model. What I'm going to do is preview. So now Bowser is in preview mode, and I expand these windows. I load up his animation file like this, and when you click on stuff, it will have him do the, what the heck? Okay, well anyway, his eyes are back. Oh, here's the special entry animation. Anyway, you just click on play to see the animation. You can also loop it. Let's say I wanted to do, the tricky thing about animation is that sometimes it's really inconvenient to have certain animations tied to certain inputs. Oh, this is the final Smash animation, by the way. Let me just play it. He actually grows in size. In my custom animation, I made it so he didn't. Let's put this animation on Bowser's crouch. So what I do is I export the animation, and on his crouch, that's actually his squat. Let's put it on his get up. So he's standing up. So I replace with his grab. So now what I do is I load up the SD raw again, like this. And then on the character, I replace the animation file. Yeah, it's this default motion file. Save it. Well, anyway, that's how you replace your animations. Anyway, let's say you didn't want to just replace an animation. Let's say you wanted to modify it. So so this is Bowser's F tilt, like that. Let's say I wanted to make his fist go longer, which I actually did I did use that for this fist punch clip. That's how I got his arm extending. So what I do is I go to whatever frame is his fist extending, like that, and I grab a joint. Okay, that's the right joint. And I change it from rotation to translation, and I just drag it to the side, like that. So now, how it looks is, if I go frame by frame, it created a keyframe that the bones will kind of translate to. Pretty cool. So that's how you make custom animations. Most of the time it's not useful just from the limitations of BrawlBox. It's hard to do good looking animations, but if you need certain parts shown like I did for this, that's how you'd make a very crude animation. So then again, you would close out and save your file. Then you would bring it into WinImage. You would open up your SD raw, go to the fighter, and import the motion file, and then save that, just like you would do for the stages. And that's how you get your custom animation. I think that's it for the Dolphin stuff, actually. So I think I'll just finish off the video with one last thing. Okay, so we talked about Dolphin for a bit. There was one last thing I wanted to talk about, and that was this final cinematic element and just kind of what it meant to me. So this might seem a bit strange why this is here. So what is that doing? And it's not super interesting. And so the first reason's kind of funny. I didn't really think I had a good finishing clip. Like this Falcon shield break was pretty nice. And I needed something to sync with these last two hits, because that's what I wanted it to be a theme that always had different things that it was syncing with. So I had these two clips and I was like, well, those are good enough. But this clip here, before it gets to the shield break part, it's just not very interesting. So I thought it kind of ruined the pace of the video to have, in order for these two to sync with their respective parts, there's this gap right here. So I was like, well, I might as well throw a cinematic there. What should I do? So I came up with this Bowser walking clip. And to me, this is kind of symbolic in a way. So this is actually Bowser's entrance animation when a match starts. I wanted something where it looked like Bowser was walking and the camera passed him. Because to me, I kind of wanted this to be like the game was leaving me behind in a sense. Or I kind of wanted this to be, I mean, this video is like the final video that I've been planning for forever, and it's this big event and I put my all into it. The last one of those. So for me, it's kind of like Project M is leaving me here. So this is essentially me and the community moves forward without me. So it's pretty simple. It's just I have a mask on the game area. It's kind of revealing Bowser, and just some Gaussian blur to blur him out to bring the focus into the next layer. Pretty simple. I just thought I'd share what that section kind of meant to me. Well, anyway, if you made it this far, like, wow. if you actually got to this point in the video, leave a comment saying, like, whatever you want to say, but at the very end, say, like, turtle or something, like just turtle. That would be, just let me know that you actually made it this far by saying turtle. I think that'd be pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, this is my last big Bowser combo video. The Last King. I have more content planned coming out soon. I just wanted to get this video out first before I moved on to other things, because there's going to be a big shift in the content of my channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you later. See you later.